Hey guys, today I want to talk about why I think that every beginner mixer and everyone learning how to mix music for the first time should probably get the Slate Everything Bundle. And this is definitely not a sponsored video because I'm actually going to be making another video that's going to post right after this talking about why I think that some people should cancel their Slate Everything bundles and why I actually have now canceled my Slate Everything bundle. But that said, I think it's important you know why the Slate Everything bundle has been super helpful for me up until the point now that I've canceled it. So let's talk about that. I've spent about the last 2.5 years learning how to mix and produce music. My favorite artist of all time, Prince, produced and mixed a lot of his own music. And so I found it really important that if I wanted to follow that career path and really learn about every aspect of the music I was making and have complete creative control, I needed to be able to record, mix, and master my own music and play all of the instruments and do all of that stuff myself. And it's been the most rewarding experience musically that I've ever been through. So I had a huge improvement in the quality of my mixes and just how fast I learned mixing when I got the Slate Everything bundle. And this is why I think if you're just starting out as a beginner mixer, that you should probably get the Slate Everything bundle. Here's the reasoning. Up until the point that I got the Slate Everything bundle, I'd always just used the plugins that were in my DAW and a couple random plugins from Waves, such as like the Renaissance series, the RVox and RBass and these things. And the thing is that whenever I would read about mixing, they would talk about classic analog hardware. They would talk about 1176 compressors or 1073 Neve preamps, or it would talk about SSL bus compressors and Fairchild 670s and Mu compressors and all of these different types of compressors and analog hardware, tape saturation and these things that I really had no reference of. Because in your DAW and in just kind of the standard Wave stuff that I bought, they don't go into a lot of detail over what the emulations you're using are, and it's kind of hard to decide in your mind and decipher what those analog emulations might be without really having complete access to all of them. I found that really hard, and also there are a lot of analog, let's call it analog gooiness or analog mojo as they talk about with Slate, that doesn't exist as apparently in a lot of the things that are in your DAW and the plugins in your DAW. I use Logic, and so there are awesome plugins in Logic, but when you look at them, there's tons of different knobs to tweak. It's not really clear what they're emulating, so when you read different tutorials and it talks about using different types of hardware in the sound of those, you don't have anything to really relate it back to. And so I found that my mixing wasn't progressing as fast as it probably could have been. And when I got that Slate Everything bundle, and suddenly with one payment of $15 or whatever it is a month, I had access to all of these different types of compressors, and I read through the Slate manual, which is really well put together, and suddenly I knew exactly what I was using and what kind of hardware it was emulating. And I'll actually put a link to a Google Doc that a guy made, which actually lists exactly within Slate every single hardware emulation, every single plugin, and what it's emulating. And so I read through this and I was like, oh, okay, so cool. So that's what an SSL console is supposed to sound like. That's what a Trident console is supposed to sound like. That's what an 1176 Blue Stripe compressor is supposed to sound like. And there were only a couple knobs because it's all based off of classic hardware. There aren't nearly as many parameters to tweak, and so it's a lot harder to mess things up. And so I found that myself as a beginner mixer, it was a world of difference that made, and being able to add the tape simulation to all of my tracks and hear how that affected things. And there is no real tape simulator within Logic, so that was a huge difference. And so I want to encourage you that it's not that expensive and you can instantly have access. The other thing I would say is, if you're not going to do that, then T-Rex is another company, and they also make tons of hardware emulations, and their bundle is about $300. Their T-Rex Max, I think it's called. And so you could also get that. That is another option, and they have a ton of hardware emulations. But that said, I don't think it's quite as intuitive still as the Slate plugins and the Slate virtual mix rack. It's very, very intuitive, and so that's the reason that I think if you're a beginner mixer, it's a great way to learn how to mix. If you're not a beginner mixer, or you just want to get my other take on the opinion and why I have now canceled my own Slate Everything bundle, and I don't think I'll be using it in the future, and I'm very happy with that, then please watch my next video called Why I Canceled My Slate Everything Bundle, and I'll go into some details on that.